What's going on, everyone? I am going to do something that I've been doing for about, 2022. Probably started doing this in like 2010, so at least 10, 12 years. Originally, when people were doing the USR taillights, like the ghost-looking ones, the see-through ones, or the smoked ones, people were messing around trying to make the Chinese-looking taillights, the Chinese domestic market ones, and obviously everybody liked the Type S's, so I messed around with that and doing black bezels and stuff like that. I even tried to do carbon fiber wrap, but that was not easy on the little detailed bezel and stuff like that. So anyway, at the time, base red taillights were going for super cheap, so I figured, let me try messing around with those. And what I found was they're super forgiving, because any imperfections, any dust or whatever, you don't really see behind the red. And I ended up making a couple of different designs that seem to really resonate, because people to this day, I've met people that are like, oh man, have you ever, yeah, the super reds or the red stripes or whatever. And it's always pretty funny to tell them that I came up with that name with my ex-wife in the kitchen of our old townhouse. So I figured I'd put together a quick little DIY on how to cut open 3G taillights without damaging. I'll start off by saying, don't bother trying to do this with Eagle Eye. I believe TYC and Eagle Eye, I think, will crack. You can't do it, if I'm not mistaken. I tried this out quite a few times before. So the ones you want to do are OEM, obviously, and Depot or cuttable, and I'll show you why when I get into cutting them. So without further, there she is, looking kind of sleek, with the inability to let you know that I'm stopping. I already pulled them off, which, if you've never done it before, once you drop the bumper to get the headlights out, there's a bracket that attaches here with a 10 millimeter, it's a screw or two screws and a 10 millimeter bolt, or two 10 millimeter bolts, I can't remember, but I think it's one 10 millimeter bolt holding the bracket to the body. It still goes back on. If you cut off these tabs from the headlights, the bracket still goes on the body, and it's under there. See? It's still there attached, so it holds the bumper just the same. The only difference is now, by detaching them from the tail lights, you can pull these out in about 10 minutes without pulling the bumper, which is fantastic. So the Dremel, I used the Dremel, and I already cut off the brackets so that I could swap tail lights very easily. First order of business for me is, I'm using a little detail brush, getting all the dust out, because obviously you don't want all that kicking up or getting mixed in. This one's still filthy, so we'll get after it, and I'll try my best. It's kind of hard because it's pretty detailed work, but basically the gist of it is you're going to be taking the Dremel. I like to use thin metal disc, and you basically cut perpendicular to this seam all the way around. When you know you're through the housing but not into the bezel is when you see chrome. So you basically just make your cut, boom. At the bottom here, when you transition, obviously you don't want it straight up and down, you transition to this way so that it ends up being butter smooth all the way across. The hardest part, because it's a double layer, is right in here, because you're cutting two layers. So naturally you're going to end up right there, and then you just follow the line to the top, and you'll cut one and then two, and you have to have a light above you so you can see whether or not there is chrome showing through. Once the chrome is showing through, the housing is completely cut. Obviously you need to pull the LED board off. I don't think you need to take bulbs and stuff off, but LED board comes off because there are two screws holding the bezel in that don't allow separation if you don't take those out. So you take those out, then I use a flathead screwdriver and just kind of click, 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 just to get all the slag, all the plastic that's melted, get it to crack, and then it'll separate. And then there's a particular way, if you hold the light, that you can kind of finagle the bezel out of the housing. So we'll get to that. So for the dirt, easy enough. I'll put it down on something soft. I don't want to mess up the Oh, this is going to be very tricky to do. With one hand. Yeah, YouTube's no joke, man. It adds a substantial amount of work to try to document things and make it look decent. Should probably set it up on a stand. Well, you get there. So, obviously, got your tail lights. Let's see. I want to pop these LED boards out. Right, let me set you down. Get yourself some, it used to be called Nissan butyl tape, but basically any kind of butyl tape. I noticed a lot of the ones they sell on Amazon now are actually white or gray, which to me looks like garbage. At least keep it black so you don't really see it, right? So here's the black stuff. And let's set you down right over here. Get these 4 screws out. Actually, don't think I even ever pop these off. I already removed the seals, you know, the gaskets. Just pop those off. Pop these 4 screws out. Where's my magnetic ting? There it is. All right, 4 of those. Now you can usually do this by hand, but these have been on the car for 170-something thousand miles, so I like to use this little screwdriver and just kind of work it up, work the board up, bam, and then you take the wiring. Ooh, what is your deal? What's your deal, man? You know what? You technically don't have to remove this. That's only if you're swapping LED boards, which we're not doing. So as long as I can kind of feed, here, let me pull this extra line up. If I can kind of feed the extra line in here to where I can get to the clip. There she is. Ooh, what do you know? We didn't even break this one. Right? That's it. Now this is the screw I was talking about. See? There's one screw holding the back to the front. You have to pull that off. It's actually holding the back to the bezel, but obviously when you're trying to separate it, you need the screw gone. Bam. Exactly the same type of screw. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I can actually leave all of this intact because that'll stay with it when you put the backpack on. Yep, so we're good to go. You can actually already pull. This is the gasket that goes inside the LED board. So I guess this is a good tutorial for swapping your LED board as well, but I figure there's so many of those on how to pull the, you know, how to pull the tail lights out. Well, I guess if you're here, I'll explain it quickly, right? Because you are going to want to do this. The trunk's still open. This white balance adjustment is really phenomenal with the smoky. Why is it doing that? It's not dirty. Trunk is filthy. Sorry about the lighting. So obviously the 4 bolts, you want to unplug those 2. It's 1 clip here, 1 small clip there with a screwdriver, and 1 unscrew clip up here. Pull those out, this pries back. You can pry it back enough to get to the 4 bolts behind the headlight, undo the plugs, and then you have your headlights. So now we're at this point. Let me go ahead and do the other one, and then I'll set you back up to watch me cut. Well, I was going to hyperlapse, but I may show you guys at least the beginning of the first cut so you can see the speed and everything else. But my old trusty Dremel, that is the second one I'm on after 20 years, and yeah, the speed thing the speed adjustment sometimes has a problem. Threw myself a nice, have a quick release blade, new little cutting wheel on it. This right here, I'm not gonna promise you that safety is always at the forefront, although the older I get, the less I'm willing to take chances. But I will tell you, that slag, the hot plastic flying, you don't want that in your eyes or on your face. So I put on a face shield when I cut. And like I already mentioned, I turned some lights on overhead so that you can see the chrome in the bezel, so you know to stop. Okay, like I said, I'll make the cut regular speed and then I'll more than likely hyperlapse for a little bit. I like to have the fan going to just kind of spit all the extra crap that way. Okay, right off the bat, let's see if I can show you guys. I'm gonna have to move under the light. See that? I'm through. As soon as you see the chrome, you know you're good to go. There's a little bit of plastic, but you see the chrome, you're good. So once you're through the bezel and you hit the chrome, you can obviously stop. Don't cut the bezel. So that was just a quick cut. I think I'm gonna hyperlapse. It's going to be loud and fans going and annoying, so this will be better if I hyperlapse. Okay, it's been a while. So that last part I was struggling because I completely forgot about that last screw that holds them together. So here you go. Have them separated. See how I kept going. And then at the end, you take a small screwdriver, little flathead, and you just work around anywhere you still see, because a lot of times the slag will melt and then it'll dry back together, it'll harden back together. So you just keep going with the Dremel until you're pretty sure you got everything. Then you work your way with a little screwdriver. Quick. And you'll hear a little cracking. Don't go nuts, just enough to separate. Once you've separated them and you're not a fool and you remember to take the other screw out, bam, they're separate. So my personal next step is, before trying to get the bezel out, I run around all the slag on the inner edge and I clean that up to be able to get the bezel out. And I also clean up all of the slag. You don't want the slag. It's going to make it so that you're not, you can't press it back together nicely. So let me remove that. So the way I do it is I go along and I clean up the inner edge, right, like I just mentioned. Once you do that, I sit down with a corner of the light in my junk, and then I use my thumbs, and you just kind of work it back and forth. Usually the inner bumper side corner will pop out first. Bam, got the bezel, got the lens, right? Woo. Clean that up. I do not want all that dust and crap, even though, again, in the red lens, everything's kind of hidden, right? So I don't want to scratch up the bezel because I'm a bigger fan of the red stripes, because when you just darken this, and this up a little bit, it actually just pops. Like the chrome under the red really pops, and it makes the red stripes. Alternatively, I used to do for the super reds, I would plasti dip the bezel. Plasti dip the bezel because the plasti dip's very forgiving when you're working it back in, so you don't damage it. If you use traditional paint, you might scratch it on the way back in. And then the way it goes back in, you put the corner in, get it started. Boom, it drops back in. You lay a bead of the butyl around the outer perimeter, smash them together, smooth it over with your finger, screws back together, everything back together, you are done. Absolutely done. So I'm going to, we'll see how much more I document, but that's basically it. All right, I guess there's no point in skipping steps at this point, right? So this clear lens, I'm gonna triple and quadruple check that that's the style I'm doing before. So I need to take another look, but I'm pretty sure red stripes were like my favorite look. Anyway, it's all coming back to me. This is just these clips, screwdriver, just push them down, this pops out, right? This is getting some VHT. I might use the other brand. I think we did Rust-Oleum, the one that we did on the tail lights of the Mercedes. Now this one's a little trickier to get out, and this is where I see OEM trumps the other ones, because the OEM quality, the way they clip together and stuff like that, you can kind of push on them a bit. The other ones, some of them were like not removable. It's really difficult to get some of the other ones. That's why OEM is really best, even though it's kind of counterintuitive to mess up nice, brand new, good quality OEM stuff. Come on, baby. One of them is out. Do not want to pry on that. Am I forgetting something? Yeah. Use something skinny, reach in that will not mar the plastic, and push. It'll unclip from the inside. Now you got the other diffuser or whatever. So I'm gonna confirm 100%. I'm gonna give this one easy little wipe down just to make sure I don't mess up the chrome, but again, super forgiving on this. So that's the headlight taken apart, right? So something as simple as just darkening that, but I'm definitely gonna do both sides at the same time. I wanna make sure that I have even coverage. If I'm not mistaken, it was precisely 2.5 coats of the VHT to make it dark enough that you could actually see something under the light without making it too dark, because I don't want to, I didn't want to make it so that you can't see if you're signaling. Okay, so nothing against nightshades, but a long time ago I had kind of decided I was not thrilled with how they came out, because it comes out purplish, even though behind the red you can't really tell. I use this is what we used on the Mercedes taillights. I ended up doing 2 heavy coats, and it doesn't look very even when you look at it in the light, but the thing is you don't want to kill the light dispersion, right? You want to be able to see the brake lights, the signals, everything. But that black, when you have darkness underneath it, here, I already started putting one of them together. Like, put this back together. Obviously I still need to clean it up, but red stripes. You know, stock more or less, red stripes. Simple, very forgiving. So I'll put them back together. So here's the butyl. And what I do is I put it on the, hey, dragonfly. I put it on the outer edge, and I just kind of lay it across. I lay it across and press it to ensure when I press them together it will go across and bridge the gap. And then once I push them together, I'll go up on top, wet my finger, and just smear it across the top gap. Here we are. Done. Red stripes. The simplest design, yet seems to be the crowd favorite. One thing I did a little differently this time is I added electrical tape. So I laid down the butyl like I showed you, then I smoothed it over the edge. Once I press them together, you have to press together pretty hard. Press it together, put the two set screws in to pull it together, and then smooth it over the edge to ensure that if there's water or anything. So one thing, it doesn't go in. So one thing I did a little differently this time is I added electrical tape, and then I added, just kind of went along the top seam and just kind of smoothed it out. Aside from adding an extra border to the water, like it gives it kind of a hard edge that the water can run down, it also prevents the butyl from sticking to the car from the heat and stuff like that. I've had that problem in the past. So although the electrical tape will more than likely pull the butyl up if you ever pull it off, if anything, that would make it easier to take it apart and redistribute, or just buy more butyl if you're going to revisit this. Okay, and this one's already on the car. God, I love that look. I really do.